Hello, I'm LinkedInX2 and welcome to the review of the NS and T1 series. You know how it goes, we're all about the drafts here, and shortly for the T1 roster, as you see, they have, again had many switches again. Zeus debut for Kana in the top lane, LM for Kras in the jungle, FAKER again for closer, he's back, and Gumayusi for Teddy, carrier obviously staying. But now getting right into game number 1, starting with the bans as always. On T1's blue side, Orianna, Samira and Olaf. So these are mostly orientated against NS players, like Peanut for example, and Duckdum's, Samira obviously. On the other side, the Talia as always, red side ban Aphelios versus Gumayusi, and the TF, he's kinda a meta pick, but more so against FAKER. He has elected him, sometimes in solo queue, so maybe they have, besides on scrims, figured out that this is a pick that they need to get rid of. This obviously leaves Kai'Sa open, with some AD carry bans already. She jumps higher in the priority list, and also Gumayusi has a lighter champion pool than Teddy, for example. So securing the Kai'Sa and the AD carry position earlier on, it's not too bad. And as answering with the Xayah Udyr, so Xayah rising in priority and now in higher standards in the AD carry department, has now become more of a staple pick. And more details about her and her rising in the scene, you can find that in the previous episodes. The Udyr similarly, now many critics have now more so accepted his power, and with more powerful and more popular junglers banned, his priority and his power is higher than any other at the moment. So getting him for an S is quite good here. Also with the Xayah, it's an okay combination to get here early on. T1 answering with the Gnar and Azir blind, so getting top and mid lane blind matchups, not so good start. And the Gnar first game here for the top laner of SKT, Zeus. The blind pick of him, it's brave, as there are counters we often talked about. It also shows his high confidence, which is a good start at least. For FAKER, again Azir, at this point it is his 5th Azir game this season, 5 out of the 7 games he played, with the other 2 being Zoe. So his most played champion not only this split, but also overall, so high confidence on the pick, and he thinks that it's very potent in the meta at the moment. So he rolls it out once again. And he did okay with the picks in the past, but he was never really a major region for wins or for losses. So he was not really a great contributor to the games in that sense. Also here blind picking with the AD carry elected as well. They could have matched the jungle pick and at least hit one of their solo lanes. But now NS can utilize these open information here about all of T1's carries to in the next 3 picks here elect something to counter them. With the Thresh here, which is okay against what T1 here has, not really focusing on that, more so on what NS has. The Lantern obviously for Xayah and Udyr quite good, they don't really have real mobility. Xayah's ultimate is more on the fake mobility side and also has a rather large cooldown. So the Thresh here is a nice pickup. And in some sense they're also getting it away from Carrier, who is a very good Thresh player as we've seen so far. In the next ban phase, the Jace, the Zoe are banned on T1 side, so both are the most relevant counter picks to their solo laners. Yes, there exist many others for each lane, but getting 2 away, it's okay. Nothing too spectacular. On the other side, the Jarvan and the Pantheon. So LM has played some Pantheon and some Jarvan in the past, but more so did Kaz. As such, they are not really targeted towards LM, but obviously these jungle bans are targeted towards T1's jungle champion pool, and that's a good idea here. Then the Renekton being elected here for Duckdown, for Rich. So that's very, very strange. It's a self-counter pick into the Gnar. So yeah, either he's molding or he knows something we don't know about this matchup. Yes, this is red side, so the red team often plays around this side because of the jungle here. But still, the Gnar is just better. And yeah, the blue side has the safer lane in case of no jungle attention, right? He can only be ganked from the river and not really from here. So there's only one possibility where he can be attacked. Still, yeah, I don't really like the Renekton pick here. Alongside the Udyr, it's a bruiser, it's a diver, so they have some frontlining and some dive. But against the Azir, both of them are being stopped by his ultimate. They're not Olaf, who can just R and ignore it. Also, the isolated matchups, it's not good. Udyr and Renekton, they don't really like to go top lane, or the Udyr doesn't really like to go top lane to help the Renekton. And yeah, now in case something like that were about to happen, he can just go for the steel-did boots and get the auto attack and armor, which is obviously very effective also against the already elected AD carry. So yeah, with these 3 AD champions as well, Gnar is very, very tanky here. And overall, it's not really that smart. Yes, Rich really likes Renekton, and yeah, still not too smart and too ideal here. The Lilia and Leona on T1 side here, Lilia and Gnar, they can work together, but again, Lilia here really liking the bot side jungle. That's the reason why we don't really see Lilia too much on blue side, because yeah, she can't really play around top side. But still, T1's playstyle in the past has been more bot side focused because of their very strong AD carries. Still, Lilia with the Moonstone build can really amplify Kai'Sa and Azir here. So yeah, really works out nicely. And yeah, she's also the next jungler in line here in terms of power. Her mid and late game damage can do fairly well. She's also a bit more evasive than her Nidalee in terms of her movement speed. So yeah, makes it a bit more difficult to get a hold on. The Leona, yeah, additional frontlining next to the Mega Gnar. And yeah, also with the Kai'Sa, a very, very strong bot lane in the 2v2. Should also T1 need some engage, right? Azir is not really engaged, please don't do that. Gnar engage is not really all too reliable, so getting a Leona as a frontliner and engage potential is quite nice. Leona also, in comparison to some other supports or some other engagers, can somewhat peel against Renekton and Udyr alongside the Azir wall. So yeah, T1 here has a nice team comp that can front to back. Not too difficult to play, if you ask me. Everyone really should be very well adept on their champion. And yeah, Victor then lastly being elected here for Bay. Victor into Azir. Quite the solid matchup, obviously with his range. He's not really under any threat. They're just wave clearing and yeah, staying rather passively here in the mid lane. He can't really help Udyr all too much. So yeah, that's the 2v2 problem. But both teams have not really shown too much attention to their mid lane. And yeah, that's not really too problematic. Victor overall though, a pick that is growing more and more in popularity. And yeah, the passive changes have made it so that longer games obviously suit him well. And especially calmer games really help him to get his upgrades faster. So then overall here for T1, more late game orientated, having a strong bot lane here with the Kai'Sa and the Leona. As I mentioned in the 2v2, they are way more powerful early on, and in the skirmishes exceed through this lead as well. NS making some mistakes here, especially with the Renekton. So yeah, T1 has like stable lanes or winning lanes in most setups here and can do well with their scaling oriented plan. The chance for like NS to top focus will only bring them so much. Now has his dash, and the two champions here really not liking each other too much. Yes, the stun setup from both of them could lock down Gna, but again he's more evasive than one might think. Then later here the survivability with the Thresh is only so much, because there are like Victor, Xayah and Udyr are potential targets that want his Lantern, so they have to discuss who in the end gets it. They have also like AoE teamfight tools. Overall it's a very solid and more down to earth comp that can be played more easily than others we have seen from T1. Considering their many roster swaps, this is more what they should look for. For NS, they have high damage and strong mid game with like these top side champions. Even though the laning phase is not too good, these champions spike or have very high power with 1 or 2 items. So if T1 is playing too recklessly, they can obviously capitalize on that and then push ahead. They need to use this power because of their bruisers here, because other than that they don't really have much agency. Not only from the laning phase again, but also in terms of engage. Thresh, his time as the main engage champion is long over, and was in a time where the teams were not as coordinated, and that's many years ago. Then Azir with his ultimate, obviously very effective against this opposition, so they have to somehow get flanks and then split T1 apart, because T1's phalanx that can be literally built with Azir ult, and then have like Gumayusi and Elim with their champions here diving or just firing their projectiles into it. Azir like constant DPS source, and with a looming threat of Gna, obviously against the more frontline of NS, this is very much better in the late game scenarios. The Victor obviously able to control these spaces here quite easily in terms of Baron or Dragon dances, but again he is very immobile, and should Leona, Azir or Gna consider engaging on him, Thresh Lantern is not fast enough to save him. So overall T1 here with the draft edge, I would say, even though NS has some abilities to punish T1 if they step out of line. That didn't happen though, so T1 was able to get the first win here and lead the series as usual with their game number 1 win. Game number 2, Teddy comes in for Gumayusi. So it was absolutely not due to his performance, I feel like. Gumayusi as usual played very great. Overall both of T1's AD carries are like top tier, and they're probably just 1 or 2 players better in the position in the world, if at all. And I and the casters guess that this is due to the champion pool. Teddy obviously playing for many years, having a larger champion pool, and Gumayusi only playing for around half a year as the starter or starting. So this is my guess, and having both of them play is absolutely no weakness in their position in the isolated 2v2. But going over the bans as one might expect here, the Kalista and Gna as well as the Azir. So taking away what FAKER and Zeus played from the previous game, and has identified these as the threats that will cause the most trouble. I might agree with this. It's a bit interesting to see that FAKER's Azir is now getting target banned, as it's usually not really a strong pick, but as you are not seeing it in solo queue or in other scrims, people might have kind of forgotten how to really do well against it. And these bruisers that we see nowadays, they're not really liking FAKER's or Azir's ultimate all too much. The Kalista against Teddy, also somewhat understandable. He has shown great power with it in the prior games, and T1, as I alluded to in the previous game, has shown more bot side focus, and Kalista would obviously help there. And yeah, the Gnar against Zeus, double effective, so not only was the Gnar quite strong in the previous game, as expected against the Renekton pick, right? But also for Zeus to get away from like the little comfort that he was able to gain from game number 1. So yeah, these men do make their sense. The Orianna, Olaf, and Taliyah. Again, the Orianna here. T1 seemingly valuing the pick quite a lot. I mean, with the bruisers, she's enabling them quite well with her abilities and the threat of her ultimate combined. So yeah, it's quite nice. Olaf again against Peanut. And yeah, the Taliyah as always on the red side. Nothing too unusual in the last department. Again, leaving the Kaiser first pickable here. Now for Dogdom instead of Gumayushi. Yeah, nothing much to say. The Udyr and Twisted Fate are being elected 41 this time. So yeah, the Udyr here, nothing too special. With the TF here, he has the backup giving him the potential to be more aggressive in the early stages, or aggressive overall. And for Faker, yeah, the Twisted Fate, a pick that he has played quite a lot in the past. With Azir gone, so he has to pick something else. The early power and mid-game power with this pick is way larger than with the Azir. Obviously he doesn't have the anti-bruiser ultimate, but he can help his own bruisers or his own solo lanes or side lanes in general. And with his more supportive playstyle, he can really help his teammates here even more so than before. For NS, electing Peanuts Nidalee. And yeah, again for Rich, the Renekton. Rich has been often been discussed as having a smaller champion pool than others. So yeah, maybe they have to work with that. Again here, the Renekton. Yes, Renekton Nidalee very powerful, but it's blue side. So yeah, it's kinda, again, the jungle side Nidalee doesn't really want to be around, but they have more avenues to attack the enemy top laner. So if T1 is being a bit greedy and have a top laner that is now counterpicking the Renekton, this can be quite hard. So imagine, let's just go with the Jace here. So the Jace obviously pushing into the turret. So we have like a scenario where here the champions are, some minion wave here. So I'm not really a great artist, sorry for that. And then the Nidalee obviously has many avenues to attack. Yes, the Renekton might be down in HP, but against a champion that can push the Renekton, in this case a Jace or a Quinn or something else, they're usually rather squishy. So Renekton just Eing through the wave onto the target with his E, and then landing the W stun with the Spear of Nidalee combined. Here on the blue side, the kill potential is larger, but the Nidalee obviously not as often in the area than on the red side. But T1 now sees this duo here, which is obviously quite well known, and over the year or years, T1 should obviously have figured something else, especially as we saw it last year. And yeah, therefore the head coach, or the coach in general, has drafted against this combination with down one quite often. So we should expect something special here. Already with the TF they have a setup to counteract this top side focus. And yeah, the Xayah also felt aligned with this. Against the Kai'Sa, obviously common matchup where she loses the laning phase most of the time. But obviously that's not a huge issue for her. She is very safe here with her ultimate. She can't really be dove. The blue side, bot side, obviously the more safer option than the blue side here. And yeah, so this also would help T1 more to allocate more resources in their own top side, with the Twisted Fate then using his ultimate top instead of bot, and leaving Teddy and Carrier here on an island where they can be more isolated and also quite safe. Then coming to the next phase of bans, the Quinn and the Rakan are gone from the blue side. So I mentioned the Quinn. She's one of probably the hardest Renekton counter, so seeing her gone, yeah, makes sense. Obviously they have banned Ignore already, so now they have 2 bans for the Renekton. This doesn't cover all facets of counter picks, but it's at least something. It's just very strange and not really recommendable to just show your cards so early on. Drafts are overall not too great as of now. Getting the comfort for Rich probably was value for NS, so we have to understand that maybe a bit. The Rakan here, obviously to deny the Rakan Zaya's strategy, in which the bot lane of Team 1 would actually have more power than Desire with like nearly every other support. She is also quite hard. The Nidalee and Kai'Sa, with their shorter range, are more susceptible to Rakan engages in case of the late game as well. So yeah, that's something. Here, banning the 2 supports that work the best with Kai'Sa, I would say. And yeah, obviously also the 2 more and most aggressive supports here in the meta at the moment. The Pantheon support, or yeah, maybe even if you're like frisky, the Pantheon mid laner could obviously follow Twisted Fate. Some scenarios, right, the support usually gets this level 6 way slower than the mid laner, but still in these scenarios the Pantheon could actually somewhat answer the TF ultimate. These bans are quite clever and make a lot of sense. Here T1 is answering the top lane situation with a Jace, so again we have a bot laner that doesn't really need too much attention and due to the terrain is quite safe. The Jace here in the isolated matchup against the Renekton is winning, but obviously, as I alluded to, the terrain in the top side for T1 side is not in his favor, and the Nidalee also indicates top side focus because of the duo, right? So the Jace here is winning against Renekton, but then in the end is quite vulnerable. The Udyr here, yes, he has the better jungle side next to the top lane, but Jace Udyr is also not really a combination we have seen too much. Obviously the problem of both being auto-attack champions, enabling the Renekton for the armor boots early on is not really too nice, but with the Twisted Fate here, the like lockdown potential with the Udyr CC as well, with the Udyr here E, obviously not lock down the Renekton, or maybe they are using it in a different way to play for LM. Obviously T1 the Twisted Fate every time with his ultimate, and then Jace could move into the jungle here with the top lane push, and then LM can follow that up, and then they can control the like blue quadrant of the jungle here for the blue side. This would be a strategy as well. So yeah, T1 in any case, they want to get this side of the map under their control and leave the bot lane isolated. At least this is what their champions like show. For NS, the Rel and the set here into the TF, kinda a mismatch. Obviously he can't really shove the wave hard. He is not really killable by the TF, yes, but he has not the same wave clear and can't really follow the roams of the TF ultimate in any case. And even without the TF ultimate, he's slower in the roam department. His skirmishing ability is better though, and he is more of a frontline here for NS. The Rel with the Kai'Sa, it's a quite okay lane. She obviously exudes a bit of power and pressure, and helps the bruisers they have elected here with their engages later on. But against Desire, who is so safe, she's obviously not a kill threat. So NS, with her, they are not looking for the laning phase, but more for the mid game and the team fight stages later on. T1 rounds up their draft with Carrier's Thresh. Now they have a even safer bot lane, right? Teddy can even be more greedier with the CS and then get the Lantern here out of turret range should NS really try to dive them. In any case, the peel Thresh offers does exist, not to a great amount, but he is capable of peeling with his ultimate, obviously, his W in some sense, and his E and Q again. So yeah, especially against the Renekton, a bit less against the set, but also against the Rel here. The Thresh pick overall does fairly well. His W also not only for the Desire, but for all of T1 here, very helpful, as they're all rather immobile, which is somewhat of an issue, but going over the team comps later on. Because we're first talking about NS here, potent mid game and skirmish heavy comp with these bruisers obviously. And they have some nice engage options which work better than usual because of T1's lack of mobility. Their late game is not too good, but even then they have some frontlining here for the Kai'Sa. And the Nidalee also quite special. She's the only real AP damage, so T1 won't get any MR. And she shouldn't really go for moon stuff here. I mean, it's possible, but the damage of Nidalee spears against literally 0 MR will really chunk T1, because not only won't they have MR, but they're also squishy champions. So it's some sort of double effectiveness of Nidalee spears here. And for Peanut especially, he was never really a supportive type jungler, also more the aggressive and farming, ganking type of jungler that will carry the games from the position, instead of like other players we have seen over the years. So NS, similar to T1's first game comp, easy to play. They have some avenues and some combinations that work fairly well. Fair game plan in the mid game, probably looking around fights in the Herald, but more so the Dragon area. And easy to play and easy goals. T1 on the other hand has a bit harder job here. The Udyr in the isolation beats the Nidalee, as we often say, but he wants to farm more so earlier on to scale better. And T1's lanes then are a bit more on their own, which is a bit of a problem. Set and Nidalee can possibly force plays on TF, who's also more immobile, and he Ghost already elected. Ghost set, with a Nidalee follow-up. Twisted Fate is also rather squishy and can be the victim here. And as I already alluded to, the top lane here with no jungle support is also a great issue, especially due to the Jace wanting to push into the Renekton, which makes him even more vulnerable. So either he plays his champion and gets some CS leads and then gets killed, or he doesn't play his champions and won't get the leads he needs to be relevant in the mid game, and then probably gets Doven under his turret. So Zeus in a really difficult situation here without really his jungler here. And the cross map plays with the TF are also a bit more limited. The upfront top strategy, as I alluded to here, with giving the Jace a lead and then having Udyr play around top side, is again dependent on LM, if he's able to adapt to the game situation and play around the top side, or if he's a bit more stubborn and egoistic maybe, and wants to farm up and then be more effective in mid and late game. But that's a trade-off they have to make here, getting away from the usual side of play, not only with their bot lane focus, but also with some of the player and champion playstyle. The terrain scaling here again makes their bot lane safer, but if top lane is losing because top lane gets camped by Nidalee Renekton, Jace is on his own, and if TF has no real lane to go to, he also is not doing anything. Yes, he will win in CS, his passive will even help him get a larger gold lead, but that's it. If TF can't really roam and use his ultimate, he's not really contributing to the game too much, and that is not FAKER's fault in this case. This is then the team coordination here. It really relies on Udyr getting an edge in top lane, because the bot lane is mostly safe, and even if they can get CS leads, their champions are not really able to push their lead onto Kai'Sa all too much. So yeah, in the mid and late game here for T1, they have like good range here, and yeah, that may let you to think that they will have a good time, but I repeat, the low mobility and the likelihood of a behind Jace, this will cause problems. Their comp is not really easy to be played at this stage, especially against what an SD has. Yes, they don't really have like super hard engage, but a gauge that can shrug off what T1 has, especially considering that T1 won't have early game leads due to misplay from their jungle priorities. So yeah, their comp is very hard to play, especially after probably a failed early game, with the swapping of many players, their coordination and team movement, and even more so the vision control as well won't be on point, and it won't work out probably. And that is also the story of the game. NS was able to get the win here. The top lane was a sad story. Jace was left alone, and Zeus being a bit more aggressive at times, but more so playing how Jace into Renekton in the isolation goes. He found himself into a hole, and thanks to Peanut's really pop-off game performance on his trademark Nidalee, and again with T1's comp not really being able to play the team fights out, really probable, like even on a basic level you see that they have like one frontliner, so one frontliner that wants to go in, and then they have like the backline here of 3 players and a Thresh that is like somehow trying to resist something. So T1 really having so much like vulnerable space that usually would be filled with peel or protection, but in this case it's just empty space that the enemy team can move into. And Udyr wants to go in, and maybe NS wants to stop the Udyr. They have great options to do that and still attack with other champions. NS comp easier to play and effective against T1's comp, which results in the NS win here, so evening the series out 1-1. In game number 3, we see that Gumayusi is getting in again. Teddy would have gotten the MVP in my opinion if T1 had one. So again, performance is not the issue here, but T1 seemingly trying something here with the AD carry swaps. Probably in terms of champion pool, maybe something else. But it looks good so far. But going to the bans here in game number 2 with Nidalee, Rel and Renekton. So T1 kind of copying NS strategy, banning everything that felt uncomfortable. And it's a simple plan, but it offers a complete or more fresh start for the new draft in the next game. So it's in most cases not too bad, mostly in terms of mental as well. And NS similarly continue with their bans of game number 2. And with the LCK law, the Talia has to go. It's just way too powerful. Though now T1 is able to elect the Orianna for themselves. They have banned it in the past, and now it's not banned. So FAKER showing high priority on the pick, first picking here it blindly. Not really too fan, because I don't really share the view of Orianna being so overpowered or so strong that you need to first and blind pick it here. So probably they don't have a super specific strategy, and they're probably also not like RNG looking for a top and mid lane like swap or bait here. But let's wait and see what the Orianna here is doing for T1. NS with the Orianna pick, are able to get the like highly contested Kai'Sa and Udyr, which, yeah, probably not expected this, but yeah, this is fine. These two champions not really working too well together in their like planning. They're very aggressive, but and not really all too kindly to each other. So yeah, the rest 3 champions can somehow build a more cohesive team identity, but so far getting the priority picks in most opinions here. But this strangely leaves off the Olaf, who by some is regarded stronger than the Udyr, by some not. So I guess it's personal preference, but for Peanut especially, as he is one of the better Olaf players around the world, I would absolutely argue that Olaf for him is better than the Udyr. But yeah, they have something of a different game plan here. The Olaf is accompanied by the Leona. Olaf, yeah, he's not really a hard sinner at this 11.2 patch with enablers. So enablers like Orianna, for example, which is 1, and yeah, that's good enough, maybe, but he usually wants at least another one. The Leona here is not really the one, but it's a pick away from the Kai'Sa Leona lane, which is understandably, as it's very, very powerful. So yeah, maybe T1 is looking for more enablers for the Olaf, but at least getting one is more than we usually see with Udyr and Olaf just being picked blindly into a different team identity. Rounding up the first pick ban phase, we have Seraphine. A very niche pick, and only a few teams really having priority or show strength with her. And yeah, we probably will see it in the bot lane. The mid lane version has not found too much success overall globally. And yeah, she's able to get the great support items. And yeah, her range can bully the Leona in some cases here. It's a bit of a more difficult pick, similar to the Lux back then, as she will, after the lane phase, face many dangers while warding alone, face checking for her team. Yeah, so Udyr probably has to help her with that, or do more of the support tasks himself. Starting with the second ban phase, Victor and the Aatrox here gone. So Renekton and Aatrox are rich most played champions besides the Ornn. So yeah, getting these two away from him, denying comfort. It's a solid strategy, and yeah, there are not really must pick and must ban champions in this instances with these teams or these pieces here facing each other, so that's fine. The Victor, again, getting away base comfort from last games. It's okay. Into the Orianna, it's actually not even that great of a matchup. The Orianna has higher push potential. Then later on, obviously, there's a bit of a discrepancy. Orianna more as a burst mage, while Victor usually offers more DPS. So yeah, that's maybe an idea. And his zone control obviously can hurt T1 a bit here, with Orianna then not being able to be in range for Olaf, or the Olaf and Orianna ultimate combination. Overall, it's not too drastic, but it's a fine move. On the other side, more AD carries. T1 has not elected an AD carry while Kai'Sa is already picked. So yeah, getting rid of these two is fine. Gumayusi not really too known for his Kalista play. That's more Teddy's avenue. So I'm a bit estranged that we don't see an Aphelios here. Maybe they don't really think Aphelios will come in because there's no Thresh, as Leona's already picked. So yeah, maybe that's their line of thought. The Samira here, obviously Gumayusi already has his fair share of quadra kills with her. There's no hurt denying it here from him. Starting their pick phase here for Bay, getting the Syndra. Instead of any counter for the first pick and blind pick Orianna, we get Syndra. So yeah, Syndra has more agency in laning phase, most certainly. But that's about it. She's not really an enabler for the Olaf, for the Udyr here. And she's not really peeling too much for Kai'Sa or setting up for her too much. Again, into the Olaf and the Leona, she's also a nice target for them. So again here, this 4th pick of NS side, similar to the Renekton, it's not really a hard self-counter pick. Again, as she's doing fairly well into the Orianna, or like fairly okay. The other 2 players of T1 here, also the other 2 champions, they really like to bonk Syndra on the head. So one has to question this line of thought here, maybe. T1 on the other side here answering with the Gragas and the Vayne. So for Zeus we get a tank this time. His first game, the Gnawa game was really good. The Jace performance, not too great. Yes, T1 as a whole had some issues in this draft of game number 2, but he was caught quite often. So the tank here will take the pressure away from him. And his ultimate can be quite disruptive against what NS here already elected. Similar to the Olaf and Leona against the Syndra especially. This will be a good pick. Getting some frontlining next to the Olaf. Again, if we follow the analogy we had just a few seconds ago, the Olaf wants to go in. Orianna, she wants to follow him a bit, but still can't really be too close to the enemy team. And then Leona and the Gragas are a bit more of a stable frontline, not really divers. Yes, they do like to engage, but they're like not really straight up going for the enemy backline or for the enemy ADC, like an Olaf maybe would. The Vayne here, well, Gumayushi, very, very good with her. He showed it before in past games, but against NS comp, it's absolutely not easy. His own team also has limited means to help him. Yes, they have potential peel, but Vayne needs more than peel. She really needs a lot of attention in most cases. And she can easily fall victim to Seraphion's and Syndra's ultimate. And it's very, very hard for her to do much here. It's mostly really hardly dependent on Gumayushi's skill. And he has to wait for like perfect moments, like wait for all the cooldowns to go down, and then he can really start DPSing freely. And an AD carry with more range would have worked better. He was hovering the Tristana. Yes, Tristana has like her own issues, but Tristana Leona also quite good bot lane in the early levels. Her mid game can be worse, because she has the crit item like Power Trough. Her turret taking ability though could do fairly well, as they've shown that they're the better bot lane, so getting the turret plates in the bot lane would then help Tristana get over this turf. So I think that Tristana, for example here, because it was hovered, would have been a better choice. And the Vayne though, higher dual lane power and an isolated counter pick against the Kai'Sa. So it's just unnecessary hard for them. It's not impossible, but again, unnecessary hard, similar to the direction game number 2 draft was going. Lastly, rounding up here for NS, the Ornn. So tank to tank matchup in the top lane. Ornn versus like the immobile carries here. Obviously doing fairly well with his ultimate. And he, with the tank matchup, like completely scraps the top lane of the like to-do list from both teams. And NS has no real lanes that are like hard winning here. Besides maybe bot lane, right? Seraphine and Kai'Sa can be quite pushy. Now have less problems in the top lane, and overall a frontliner next to the Udyr. Similarly to the Gragas, Udyr and Olaf really want to get into the thick of things, while the rest of the team still needs a frontline that's left to protect. And Ornn, not really hard peeling champion, but with his slows and his ultimate can obviously be some form of deterrence, and he's also a very, very tanky champion. The Ornn pick here, maybe not the best 5th pick here. Some mentioned the Gangplank here, that might have been better farming free into the Gragas, his ultimate and E ability versus the Vayne, for example, being like completely destroying her and dismantling her. And yeah, that's a pick that leads to both teams like having then to maybe focus the top lane. It would be very good for NS, as it would also be like more scaling and more like of a time bomb for them. Again though, if it is really in a rich repertoire, I'm not sure. So with this on pick, they can ignore the top lane and have easier teamfight ability than the Gangplank, who obviously is not really able to tank in these standoffs, but his zone control would give them the space that they were looking for instead of an HP pool. Overall here T1, I have to say, they have a way better comp than in game number 2. They have been greedy with some of their choices, but in the end they have a lot of damage, power in every game state, and yeah, more or less a clean teamfight setup. It's not a wombo combo, but still much easier to play, and yeah, again, considering that they have even swapped players in the series, an easy comp should be the way to go now. And yeah, the only grave problem in their composition is the Vayne, and that's really a problem because Vayne is all their DPS. But other than that, it's a fine comp. Have power everywhere. Yeah, I rather like it. And for NS, yeah, T1 has like openly elected their carries, and they have rather failed to punish them even with the help of the like red side counterpick advantage, and have not really done anything accordingly. They have elected safe matchups if possible, and yeah, that is not really the way to go considering the obvious differences in player skills, which not only on paper but also in the previous matches, even as T1 was losing game number 2, their players had very good CS numbers, and especially in the bot lane, well. So yeah, NS has to get draft edges, otherwise it's likely to go similarly to game number 1. And yeah, in the last game we saw that they were able to play quite good as a team, having obviously more synergy than T1 like has at all. Yeah, with the draft edges in game number 2, they were able to do quite a lot. Here, they have the avenue of like denying the Vayne, as she's a rather silly pick, if I'm being frank. But even then, Gumayushi, if he's able to get early game leads and then snowball that, or if he's just a god and has super positioning, then what then? NS has no real ability to get on him too reliably, while yeah, the Seraphine ultimate and the Ornn ultimate can like look for him. If they're waiting with these cooldowns too long, then the Olaf and then the Orianna will have shredded their like squishy backline, because there is no real appeal for Olaf and the Orianna ultimate. So NS had the chances to punish T1, they didn't really do it, and in the end they settled for mediocrity, which is not really their avenue to victory in this series. And yeah, that's it. T1 were able to get the win here, getting an early gold on their carries, being in a great position overall, and yeah, the gameplay from Gumayushi and yeah, FAKER's Orianna, especially here, I have maybe to talk a bit more about this here. So he was getting the CSU leads as usual, and for the first time in ages, the mid lane of T1 was getting attention, which he then used all around the map. And yeah, like the commenters called him a multiplier, he took his individual lead and then only increased his for his teammates. And yeah, continuing the rant, if I may, especially here now about FAKER. So FAKER, he has been a team player since like late 2017, and even if there were times in 2018 or like early 2019, yes, these times existed, but overall he was mostly focusing on setting up first team, which was the meta playstyle in some areas, but for example, it came the last year, T1's style of having like FAKER support was clearly not what the rest of the world was doing. They still found wins and success, but it was not enough and was always rather strange. That playstyle is not inherently bad, as League is a team game, and more so than anything for quite a while now. But the mid lane is also like the second most important lane in the game and position. So T1's inability to play around it for quite a while and not giving FAKER laning focused champions obviously was not something seen to any degree overall. So it was actually more shocking that FAKER was doing so well on his own, and even against the top other mid laners or in the 1 versus 2 setups that he found himself so often. But he was not really able to do much for his team if this was happening, because he was then even or just ahead by a few CS. Considering a player of his caliber, that's a bit sad that they weren't able to do too much with this. Yes, there are all these claims of him being washed up, but look at him today, look at him like the last games, look at him in solo queue, he's absolutely not washed up. So that's just silly. So now considering that T1 finally, at least this once in this game, were giving resources to FAKER, it's just really good to see in the game, and combining this with his natural lead that he's usually creating with this jungle attention, this creates a substantial advantage. And then going back to his more supportive playstyle, he's giving it back multiple times due to his team. Yes, this is not only good for the mid-game power of the team, but also creating more threats overall in the game for the late-game teamfights, which in this case were very, very crucial, because these multiple threats from the Olaf and the Orianna being so powerful created really enough space for Vayne to then do damage. Orianna was just going the usual, even against the Syndra we farm, and if they weren't able to create this lead in the mid lane with Elms and Carrier's roams, then Orianna and Olaf weren't able to snowball this hard and then set up for Vayne in the late game. It's not really too complicated, but overall this is a nice way to see that T1 may have found something here. Many fans have screamed for FAKER support and for giving FAKER more resources, and maybe we see this more happening. But moving on from my little rant here, the drafting from T1 here showed new adaptations overall in the series. There were also a bit more of the problems here, so it's not really that much improving, but we have to see if maybe with this great roster, which I really like and wanted to see for quite a while, maybe with this roster they can find a new or a concrete way to draft. Talking about the roster maybe here, the LM and FAKER jungle mid lane duo and the swaps in the bot lane are a sign of T1 suffering from success, if you will, or just having too many talented players. Zeus debut was also really good. FAKER mentioned in an interview that Zeus was really nervous here, so in the future we may see more stable performances, but so far it was good. And I really hope they continue with this roster. They weren't able to just get the win here, but also to get a win in game number 3 and kinda break the 1-2 curse, at least for now. So let's see and hope for the next series versus Brian Gaming, another T1 opponent here that they're expected to beat, and may be the beginning of a return to form. But that's it now for now. Thanks for watching till the end. This one will conclude the review for the series. Hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, what do you think about this new roster? I think they have a good mix of young, aggressive players, and with FAKER's leadership, it really looks promising. He comes a bit out of his comfort zone and is more aggressive, especially with the added resources he now has. And the others may be less nervousness and more controlled. And in the late game, his shot calling, really improved the macro game, which was an issue with previous iterations where they were kinda lost and without clear and concrete ideas for the late game rotations. But that's it for now though. Yeah, please stay safe, have a great day, and yeah, till next time, bye.